The only moment you need to worry about is right now. And you can plan out the future, you can have goals and work towards goals, but you have to live in the moment. Developing the mindset that you're temporary, it takes away the need to impress so many people. Like, the ego is what's actually holding you back. It's how dare they do that to me, or that type of rhetoric in your head. It just, you ruminate on it over and over again. Real happiness comes from within, and accepting who you are, accepting the fact that you're temporary, and you got a limited amount of time to make an impact on the world. Do it.
Michael, why do you think we should be thinking about our mortality? In what sort of way can that help us live better lives?
Well, I think just accepting that, being honest with yourself about your place in the world, and it just gives you a bit of guidance, a bit of an ability to see yourself as temporary. I think that that's actually healthy. What that does is it creates a sense of urgency to create the relationships that you want to create. It gives you the opportunity to be more intentional with your time. It gives you the opportunity to focus on your legacy. I talk a lot in my book about legacy, and the fact, I believe that everybody's leaving a legacy whether they like it or not. you know Everybody's going to have that opportunity to leave a legacy, and it's your choice what that legacy is, right? There's a lot of legacies that are terrible, and there's a lot of legacies that are really inspirational. And so, um I love the concept of, you actually die twice. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is, your first death is your actual death. It's the funeral. Everybody gets notified. People are crying. It's terrible. It's a big event because you were an amazing person, and that's your first death, and everybody knows what that looks like and feels like. Um, but to me, the second death is the moment, undetermined amount of time in the future, where people no longer speak about you. The
Hmm.
people who are at your funeral no longer speak about you. And there's people whose second death has never happened before, because we still speak about people thousands of years later, right? But for me, I want to extend that second death as far as I can into the future, because I've made an impact on people.
Hmm. Do you think that's like a way that our subconscious is trying to cling to immortality, wanting a legacy that lives forever? Because that's why men put the names over mountains and avenues, and they wanna. Or before we conquered everything, because now pretty much we've conquered everything in Earth. This is why people went on expeditions and to be known forever. Is it? Do you think it's like a cling to immortality in a way?
Well, I think what you're describing is more around someone's ego, right?
Hmm.
I don't subscribe to being egotistical about it. Like, people, I think that that's been the downfall of a lot of people. Um, it For me, it's the complete opposite. I want to accept that I'm not that important in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things, but I'm very important to the people in my life. And so, for me to put my name on a building or something, that doesn't create what I'm describing. What I'm describing is about how you make people feel based on your everyday actions, your charitable events, give back to the community, run programs for kids, you know, things like that, where you just find ways to give back to your community. I'm a big believer in community. And I think that, when I refer to it as, your second death, and you want to extend that, I'm referring to, do you remember when he or she did this, and they were always there for us, or she always had great advice, that type of stuff. And I think that is way more heartfelt, and that's more of what I'm going on. Like, the other side of it to me is all about ego, and I'm trying every day to push my ego way down because I'm one person. There's 9 billion people. There's trillions of planets and galaxies and stars. And like, think about it. We're one tiny speck in a massive galaxy, you know? So to me, there's a chapter in my book called The Power of Perspective. And it talks just about exactly that. And there's an image in it where it's a hand holding sand. And the sand is, falling out of the person's hand. And each grain of sand is a star in the galaxy. Like that's how many
Yeah.
stars there are. Like for it's unfathomable. And so it just yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like,
We
and then
significant.
it leads to why not take risks? Why not write a book? Why not do a podcast? Nothing. Like, why not?
Yeah, and you don't see it much discussed in modern world. Perhaps because we are constantly distracting with something, and for you to think more about your mortality, maybe you need more idle time. Maybe you need more the luxury to think about, okay, what is going on? Because if you're constantly caught up on the next thing and chase the promotion, chase this, find the wife, buy the car, m- maybe we don't, but maybe we should. Maybe we should. We should maybe bring back more contemplating about mortality.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, like I when people ask me about like what's your book about, I say, you know what? If I were to summarize it, it's an invitation to slow down,
Hmm.
and it's just live in that moment. I find that when you're busy, as you just described, like being busy with everything and trying to keep up with societal pressures and financial pressures, and you're out there chasing more and more and more. I find that time just flies by, and before you know it, a year passes.
So
And
true.
then yeah, and then you see your niece or nephew, and you're like, "Holy cow, how did you get so big?" Right? And but the truth is, the same year has flown by for you and me as well. You just don't see the changes in our like we're grown men, right? You don't see the changes like you do in an 8-year-old, right? And so, like, to me, like the people talk about like what's wealth. To me, it's being healthy. It's spending time with your loved ones as much as possible, creating memories with your family, leaving an impact on your community. That's wealth. You know, you can't take any of it with you,
No, nothing.
right? Like people chase things all the time, but we all end up in the same place.
Hmm. Right. So okay. So we all know we're gonna die, and we have this instinctual fear of death that makes us want to stay alive. Yet we do things on every day that are risky and compromise dying earlier. We abuse drugs. We do extreme sports that we can die. We drink and drive. So we are afraid of dying, but it doesn't seem we have any consideration for living at all. Why? Why do we do this? It's like a contradiction in and on itself.
I think there's a combination of things there, like something like drinking and driving. Well, I think that you might be a little bit, lost in your life if you think that doing that is okay. Like you're not thinking of other people when you do things like that. You know, it's obviously not a good choice. And then, when you think of like extreme sports, well, that's someone's sense of adventure, right? Like that is living. That is, you accept the risks that are involved with something like that, but the adrenaline rush is fantastic. Like you go on a really awesome roller coaster or some of the extreme sports that you just referred to. Um, would I do it? No. I'm not very risky like that. But, you know, I see the appeal, I guess. Everybody has the right to do their own thing. Like if you want to do extreme sports, go for it. I'm happy for you. I'll watch. Um, but yeah, I don't know the answer to your question. I think it's I think we get caught up too much where we don't think decisions through. Like for drinking and driving as things. But you're not thinking that through. You didn't think about that before you left that night. How am I getting home? You never thought about it. because maybe you're too busy, maybe you're just rushing through your day and you end up in a situation where you're drunk and you have a car there.
We only think about the fun part about, oh, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
drinking and
exactly.
dancing with this girl or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't think
But
about what comes later.
well, I think that's part of being intentional with your time, right? Like if you develop the mindset of being more intentional and slowing down and blocking off time for things that are important to you, you wouldn't be put in that situation. You'd
And
have
how
you'd
do
have,
you do
take,
it?
you'd have taken an Uber there.
Right. How do you become more intentional with your time? Do you set up a meditation practice? Because we all do get, the occasional existential crisis every now and then that shake us in a weird way, and we get that sense of urgency. But a couple of hours or a day passes by, and then we feel as if nothing happened. So how do you actively get in that state of slowing down and being more intentional with your time? What do you suggest?
So like for me, I need space to actively think about what's going on in my life and I try to block it from the immediate to the long term and see if I need to do any preparation work for long term goals and like for the book that I just wrote, I'm a full time high school teacher, and for me to write a book, and I have a daughter that is very active in sports and different things, and we have a pretty busy lifestyle. So for me to write a book in about a year, the only way I could have done that is I woke up every morning from 5 o'clock, and I wrote till 7 every day for about a year, and that was the only way that this book would have ever been completed. So it was an intentional block of my time, right? So it was for a specific purpose. I put away all the distractions that would um, you know, you know, veer me off into another direction. So, just being intentional about that specific time because I had a specific goal. Um, so I think when people are doing that, like take away the distractions. I think, especially in the younger people, um, cell phones are like such an addictive thing. Like
For
you
sure.
need to be you need to be disciplined enough to put it away. Like when I get home and my daughter gets home, I put my phone in the other room. I try to, right? I try to be more present. Like when I'm with people at a dinner, I put it away. Like, it's just being like here with you today, like just being here with you today is a gift in and of itself, right? Like we have an hour to talk about all kinds of great things, and that's part of being intentional. So, I think it's just honestly comes down to discipline. And you need to visualize what works for you, right? Like what are your immediate goals? What are your long-term goals? If it's fitness goals, if it's educational goals, then put those out there and block time to make them happen.
Yeah, no, you definitely need to be intentional in today's world. Especially as you said a moment ago, how your nephew or your kids grow up very, very quickly and you don't notice on us. I notice the opposite. My parents now, who are getting older, I go home once a year. And every year I go, they're dramatically so much more older. And their skin is getting like worse and they're getting smaller and they're getting weaker. Everything hurts. And you think, you don't have much time now. If when you visit your parents, to anyone listening, you stay on your phone or you go meet your high school friends, you need to think more like, well, how many more times am I going to see my parents? They're getting old, so you need to be more intentional with them, but not only with them, with everyone. But that was just one example how it's you need that sense of urgency.
Yeah, you really do.
You really do.
You just mentioned you only see them once a year. So you're going to notice those changes a lot more than if you were to see them weekly or, I think over the course of a year, I think a lot can happen, right? But I totally agree with you. Like I've read a lot of books recently about these types of topics, and there's a consensus out there where it's like, how many more times am I actually going to spend some time with my parents? How
10
many
times,
more
right?
opportunities am I going to have? Within my book, I wrote. I asked my dad. Like I've always had a great relationship with my dad, but we haven't gotten deep into a lot of topics and conversations, and I kind of wanted to know where he stood on a few things. So, um, after a conversation with a friend of mine, so long story short, but I had a friend of mine whose dad passed away about a year and a half ago. And he said, he goes, I didn't have the chance to, ask me, and he had dementia, the father, I must say, because he was saying
Mm,
how he didn't remember the last time he had a meaningful conversation with his dad because his dad's mind was elsewhere, right? And he was really grappling with that. He had a lot of grief about that. And I was there to console him and talk to him about that, but it really got me thinking about my own father, who is still healthy. And I said, "You know what? I need to spend more time with him. I need to spend more time with my mother as well." And I decided to ask him a series of questions that I actually included in the book in the back. So there's a series of questions that are like it made him stop and think, and he didn't really know. Like I asked him questions about like when you were 15 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up? Stuff like that. Like I would never know that. Things like that. One of the questions was if you could put a billboard up and for a whole world to see and it had a question on it, what would it be? You know, what would your question be on
right.
a big billboard for the entire
Right,
world?
because we spend a whole childhood growing up with our parents, but we don't know anything about them. It's just mom and dad, but we don't know how they grew up, what the dreams they had, how did they fail, the first love, the first heartbreak, how did they push through when they were poor before they get a house. Yeah, we barely know anything about them.
But
I
as
guess
we
many
as
of
we
us.
become adults, I think it's our responsibility to kind of find that out. Those are great questions. Like, when's the first time you had a major failure? There's so much insight from people who have been through it, right? They've been through it.
And yeah, and this I've read a book recently that kind of taps into this, how what do we do with the elders in the 21st century? We lock them in a home and go there, retire with other old people, and you have palliative care, whatever, even if they're not really sick. But hundreds of thousands of years ago, whatever hunter gatherers and tribes, the elders were the wisest because they have all of the lessons that they can pass down to generations. So
Absolutely.
instead of locking your father or your mother in a home, how about you, in a way, teach him or her how to teach lessons to your kids or to yourself that you can pass down your kids, because there's so much wisdom there. Yes, of course they fucked up. Everyone fucks up. I'm gonna fuck up. We're all gonna fuck up as parents. We're not perfect, but there's so many lessons to be learned at the fuck ups as well. So that's something very interesting as well. How we kind of do it to ourselves in the 21st century.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love the concept, like you said, with some tribes and their elders are the most respected in their whole tribe,
Hmm.
right? I get it. I agree with you. Yeah.
Michael, have you come to terms with your own mortality, or is it a constant battle?
I think I have. But I also think I have a long way to go. I think I have a lot left to do and a lot left to give. And I think this is the beginning of a new chapter in my life too. Like just to have the confidence to speak about something like this. Um, not everybody thinks or speaks or thinks about any of these concepts. So for me to do that, I think is a good for me. It's therapeutic for me. I came to
Hmm.
this I came to this the conclusion of writing this book from a series of losses of my own, including a good friend of mine who's my age, and um, seeing him there, like it could have been he died of cancer, and I'm thinking to myself, it could be anybody. It could have been me or my wife or somebody, and it was him, and it's there, it's real. It's not something you
Hmm.
need to think about every day. I'm not saying you sit there and think about it all day long. That's not what I mean by having a mortal mind. I refer to it as a mortal mind. What I mean is to always have that in your mind and always think, you know, one day it's going to happen. Every day is preparation for that. And I hope you live to 100. Like I hope you have a great fulfilling life with kids and grandkids and great grandkids and You know, you're sitting at the dinner table with a whole big family who loves you. Like, that's all fantastic. Love it. Yeah.
But it's gonna end
Yeah, of course
for
it
all of
is.
us. Yeah.
And but that's the beauty of it. Look around you in nature, right? Look at a tree, look at a bush, look at a bear, look at anything. None of it's meant to be here forever. None of it.
Do you think there is a meaning to life?
Yeah. I think it's to make an impact on your community, whatever that community is. Everybody is a temporary piece of that puzzle. And that puzzle, keeps going over the course of time. And every one of us is a piece of that puzzle. And it'll create a beautiful mosaic over time. And you're just one small piece of it. And I think that that's beautiful. I think that community is beautiful. I think being a part of the solution is beautiful. And I think, yeah, that's the meaning to life is to invoke goodness, to create goodness, um to leave the world better than when you found it.
And that's a nice one. To leave the world better than when you found it. Sometimes it's as simple as that. As
Yeah.
simple as that. Just don't be a dickhead. Contribute.
There's people out there that are not doing that. There's, a lot of greed out there and there's a lot of dishonesty. I think, we both know that. Um, but when it comes down to it, they're gonna die too. Those people who are greedy, those people who are manipulating other people, those people who are whatever they're doing, they're gonna end up dead too. And we all end up at the same spot anyway. So why not do some good?
Exactly. And I like how you mentioned community because so I'm big on productivity and self-help and all these things. And community is something non mentioned non-stop on YouTube, but yet nothing feels like a community. Because community, I don't think community can be online. Yes, in by definition, but you have to be part of a thing in real life. And living in a big city, I live in London, UK. It's so challenging. You feel so isolated and detached by your own design, of course, because you have your job, you have your hobbies, you have this. Even when you join a running club, even when you join I don't know, a pottery class. To me, at least, and maybe of course, is my subjective experience. I don't see people feeling like they are in a community. I see people coming together to do a common exercise, to participate in something, but you can see how people are detached while doing this thing, and that's very sad. And I don't know how we bring this back, man, but I think that's very important.
Why do you think they're detached?
I think is we are so caught up on what we said before in this what am I doing with my life? That even when you get the opportunity, because these are opportunities to create community, people are still hung up on how is my hair, how is my shirt, what are gonna think of me, or maybe my friends are gonna think I'm a loser for coming in this class. So I think we are all caught up in the idea of what is about to come. That maybe we again is living in the present. Maybe that's one of it. So when you go there, maybe we need to stop thinking about all these things.
Everything you just mentioned is like superficial worries, anxieties, like
Superficial, yeah.
things that don't really matter. And, you know, developing the mindset that you're temporary, it takes away the need to impress
Mm.
so many people, right? Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's I'm here because I enjoy this. I don't care if you don't like my dress or my hair. And I think that people need to like I don't people can do what they want. In my view, you know, not worrying so much about those types of things and worrying more about the content in which you're sharing, like it is way more valuable than worrying about the things that at the end of the day don't matter. It's really a waste of time if I'm being honest, right? Um, and that comes from being intentional. Like I bring it back to the core point of kind of slowing down, and um, I think that people are distracted. 100%, I agree with you. Uh, but I think it's because they're caught up in the race of life, right? They're caught up in the need to acquire more things. They're caught up in the need to have a lot of followers on their Instagram page. Like
Yeah.
what are they, trophies? Like they're do you win something? Like I think
And only once you achieve those numbers, you realize, oh, this is not it.
it's not enough. It's never enough,
It's never enough.
right? So like real happiness comes from within, and accepting who you are, accepting the fact that you're temporary, and you got a limited amount of time to make an impact on the world. Do it.
Yeah. So that's why the greatest gift you can give someone is to fully be present in the company.
Yeah.
Because sure, you can give someone your time, but if you're not fully present, if you're thinking about someone else, if you're thinking what are you gonna eat later, or wanting to be someone else, that's disrespectful towards the person. We all hate you talk to someone and suddenly they take the phone and they're like, yeah, I'm listening. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
I, I I'm done with that conversation. You know what? You want to be on there, go for it. Like I'm not going to stop you. You do you. But to me, it's I was saying that earlier. Like I just kind of be more intentional with the people that you're around and give them their full attention. And I also want to add to that, like be more intentional with your free time. Like as an example, when I drive home from work now, I try to call friends of mine, call them in the afternoon. Just, you know, 15-20 minute phone call once a month, because I'll rotate through a series of friends and kind of just see, hey, what's up? How you doing? What's the latest? Community comes from being with people. You go back to the tribe, you know, First Nations people, they know community because they're with each other. They rely on each other. They do things together. In society now, we're way more secular. Like every home is kind of on their own little island, right? And hopefully you make do. Hopefully you make enough money to put food on your table, you know. But the sense of community obviously is diminishing quickly. Yeah. And I think that is the true beauty in life is developing that community, um, and being an active member of that to make it better. Like I said, you're one piece of that giant puzzle. So, do your best to make sure that that piece fits properly. It has the right colors on it to make the beautiful mosaic.
There is this book called The Five Regrets of the Dying. Maybe you've heard it. It's about this nurse who was in palliative care in Australia, and she captured the regrets of people at the end of their life. So she wrote this book, and there's five of them. One is, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, or I wish I had let myself to be more happy. But the one that made the biggest impression on me is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. What are your thoughts on work-life balance? Should we work less and live more since death is approaching? Or should we just spend more time at work now to get more free time later if we get it? What are your thoughts on work-life balance?
Well, let's start with a question. If you were working at a company for 20 something years, and you were to die, how long do you think it takes for them to start taking resumes to replace you?
Right away.
That should answer your question. How long do you think it's going to take for your son or daughter to get over your passing?
Quite some time.
It's an easy answer. Money's a tool. That's all it is. The pursuit of more money, it's a fool's game at the end of the day. Like the relationships that you develop over time, especially with your family, your children, that pays dividends. Who's going to be with you when you're on your deathbed? Who's going to be there?
Right. Not your boss.
He's not going to be there. She's not going to be there. They'll probably send flowers.
Best case.
Your replacement might send flowers too.
This is the thing. We focus so much on going after the status and the money because we think we're gonna be enough, but we forget what really matters. As all these people said in the deathbeds, I wish I spent more time with my friends
Yeah,
and
not
didn't work
one of
so
them had to
hard.
do with working harder or making more
No
money.
one's gonna say, yeah, I wish I made my boss richer for 10 more fucking years. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Right? Like, listen, you need money to survive. I'm not suggesting you don't do what you have to do to support your family,
Hmm.
but you got to find the balance between that and your family. I think family always has to be your number one priority.
Michael, and maybe, I don't know if you're transparent about this, or if not, I can even cut it if you want, but have you tried psychedelics?
No, I haven't.
No.
No.
Because there's something to be said about how you, when you take some psychedelics, you can have an ego death, a temporary release from your identity and your wants, which allows you to live more fully in the moment. So that's why many people, they give them now in therapies to forget about PTSD, because PTSD is like part of their identity now, these memories.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I was just wondering if you had if you did any research on how psychedelics and this fear of mortality play out together.
I've definitely heard about it and read about it.
Hmm.
Do you follow the NFL? Do you know who Aaron Rodgers is?
No, not
He's a
really.
quarterback. My favorite team's the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback for a long time. He's going to be a
Hmm.
Hall of Famer. Um, put out this documentary about him going to, I believe it was Costa Rica or I believe it was Costa Rica, and he did ayahuasca. Is that what
Right.
you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Is Costa Rica? Yeah. This is one of them. Yeah. This
Yeah.
can be one of them.
So, and it was fascinating to, and listen, I'm not discrediting it at all. I think it would probably work. I just have never done it myself. But to to basically kill the ego that you had for all these years, right? Like the ego is what's actually holding you back. It's how dare they do that to me, or you know that type of rhetoric in your head. It just you ruminate on it over and over again, right? Um, PTSD victims, I'm sure. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn. I've never really experienced PTSD myself, but you know I can't really speak to that. I don't know if that would work for them or not, but it is quite fascinating to kind of take yourself, I guess, away from your reality. I guess you're looking at it from someone else's perspective, right? Is that
It's like a third person perspective. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like I never put the connection together, but in my third chapter is called The Power of Perspective. I go through a series of perspectives. One of the perspectives I call the observer's perspective.
Hmm.
And it's basically being the fly on the wall and watching your life unfold like you're watching a soap opera. Like if you were sitting on the couch, you'd be like, the guy's behind the door, you idiot, that kind of stuff. And you'd be watching it,
Hmm.
knowing the answer. And maybe that's kind of the same
Right. So
idea.
psychedelics is that, but it's not a mental exercise. You might really feel like the fly on the wall,
You probably
watching
do.
yourself from your body, because it's so much easier to be objective and criticize, or let's say be objective and constructive when we see at someone else's life, but we cannot. We often cannot take our own advice
Yeah.
for own. So we are very good at giving a third person perspective, but when that's why we need to do that to ourselves.
We need to do that to ourselves. We need to step back and say, all right. I also use the concept of expand the timeline. So if you're going through a problem right now, I don't know, you got fired from work, right? Expand the timeline. Do you think that's still going to be a problem a year or two from now? Probably not. You'll figure it out, right? You'll look back and say, man, that me being fired was actually the best thing that ever happened because you took yourself away from the immediate and you looked at it from a bigger point of view, you know? And I think that that's really healthy. When I talk to my daughter, she plays hockey and she got upset because she couldn't skate. The coach was teaching her a specific way to turn, right? And she couldn't figure it out. She kept on falling. And she came home and she's like, Daddy, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't make that turn. And I said, well, I remember one time you came up to me and said, "Daddy, I can't stop." Well, now you can stop. "Daddy, I can't skate backwards." Now you can skate backwards. So I teach you the concept of yet. You can't do it yet. You know what I mean? And so expanding the timeline, I explained to her, I say, "Do you think in a year from now you'll be gonna be able to make that turn?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "Then just keep working on it."
That's a very cool idea because yeah, it alleviates so much anxiety because the anxiety lives at the moment, like my next step. Oh, am I gonna be able to do this? So it alleviates a lot of that, anxious, yeah, that a
Anxiety
lot of that anxiety. Yeah.
anxiety comes from an imagined future.
Yeah.
You're imagining all these things that are gonna happen. 99% of them won't happen the way that you expect them to. It's not gonna happen that way. The only moment you need to worry about is right now. And you can plan out the future, you can have goals and work towards goals, but you have to live in the moment. You have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk to me about the letters to the next generation thing. What's the idea all about?
So, if I were to give you a bit of a background for the
Hmm.
book, my wife's I'll start with my wife's father's passing, which was in October of 2023, and I speak about it in the book quite a bit. And he was a big part of our lives. He was a patriarch in our family, and we miss him dearly. But he was battling a long battle with cancer, and he passed away in October. And I decided to take a little bit of break from my everyday work to be at home and to just be there for my wife and daughter and kind of be more present to make sure that everybody's fine, and including myself. I wanted to give myself the time to grieve and everything like that. And it was within that time that I started really thinking a lot about what would eventually become this book. And I go back to work, and I had a lot of time to contemplate. I did a ton of reading, a lot of stoicism and different things that would really help me with my perspective and my mindset. And then I go back to work, and then a buddy of mine passes away who's 40. He was 42 years old. And that funeral had a huge impact on me. We had a great celebration of life where everybody was really celebrating him, but his wife was up there with their 7-year-old daughter. And I was just sitting there staring at the daughter because I have a daughter who's the exact same age as that. And I'm just waterworks. Like just it was like I was sitting there and I didn't know what to think. I was just thinking this could be anybody. I started thinking like, what if that had been me? What would my daughter do? What would my wife do? And I didn't really know how to handle that grief for a while. So what I did is I started writing letters to my daughter. And the letters were never really meant for her to um, read right now. Like it was more, I was trying to put together what I referred to as a legacy package. And there were perspectives on life and they might have been off of a famous quote or something. And I told her stories. I wrote about stories about some of her milestones. And then I kept on doing that. And those letters eventually morphed into the chapters that you see in the book. So the book is effectively letters to my daughter. And I've edited them to be more in the form of a book, but the concepts were based on the letters that I was writing to her. And so when I think about a legacy, a letter is an opportunity to give clear, thought through communication to a younger generation. And so, you could do it in the form of video, you could do it in the form of audio, you could do it a variety of different ways. But it was just really therapeutic for me to not forget that specific thing or not, to take the opportunity. Like I might have seen something that she did a particular day that made me think of, a grander lesson or concept that she'll eventually learn. I know she's young, but I'll bring back that story I remember from when she was 7. And she'll read it when she's 30, and all of a sudden it's it's a fun concept for her to look back on.
No, it's a beautiful one because everyone can do that with the kids. Start writing some notes that then when they reach 30 and they're gonna have the maturity to understand them, you can just gift it to them. And it doesn't have to be a book. It could be whatever, a diary, as you said, video. It could be so many things. Michael, where can people find you? Where can they find the book?
Well, it's available on Amazon worldwide. You can find it there. It's called The Paradox of a Mortal Mind. I also have a website called themortalmind.com, themortalmind.com. I have an audiobook there. I have an ebook there, and I actually recorded the audiobook myself, which was an interesting and fun process. It took about 6 weeks for me to record the whole thing. It's harder than it seems. I've never really done anything like that, but it was really good, and I hope you like it. It's available on the website again at themortalmind.com. This is the actual book itself. It's called The Paradox of a Mortal Mind by Michael Drake, and I hope you really like it.
Yeah, well, I hope people get it because, again, it speaks about a philosophy of facing immortality that we should just be thinking more about in this modern world. And so I'm sure it's going to make people, ponder on some things they should have, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Michael, what do you want to be remembered for?
Mm. I want to help people develop clarity about who they are. As I mentioned to you, I've been a high school teacher for almost 20 years, and the last 4 or 5 years, I've really kind of morphed my role into more of a leadership role within the community that I'm in at school, and I find it really rewarding to have young men who young I teach phys ed. I teach a lot of like teenage boys that, a lot of them are kind of lost as to what they want to do, and they're really addicted to their phones, and they have no real drive and that kind of thing. And, you know, I hope that I can be a good role model for them to look up to, and ask questions and develop a little bit of clarity. And a lot of them have actually read the book that I just written, and they love it. They're getting feedback from it. I get a lot of uh, joy out of seeing that in younger people. And then they come back 3 or 4 years later and they're telling me how much of an impact I had on them. That's a really rewarding piece of my work. And um, so I just want to be remembered for making a positive impact on my community, and hopefully, the world as a whole. And um, like I said, I want to take away my own importance in the grand scheme of Earth and history and humanity. Like I'm one small piece of a grand puzzle, and um, I just want to. I want my daughter to be loving and driven, and I want her to also give back and pay it forward as much as possible. It's how you make people feel at the end of the day. I use Maya Angelou's quote in my book about it's not what you say or think, it's how you make people feel. And I want to invoke that feeling in as many people as I can, and um, being remembered as a positive impact on my community.
Beautiful. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thanks, Francesco.